The story begins with a man named Kanata. As he is suddenly stabbed by his stalker, he's unable to defend himself. His stalker surrounds her blade with lightning as she delivers the finishing blow. He wakes up in a cave, where the goblin elder Gabu names him Ru and gives him something to eat. He realizes that he has been reborn as a goblin, so he cries because he isn't happy with his current form. 3 days later, his body matures as he realizes that goblins grow faster than humans. Gobu gives the children food but explains that this is going to be the last time because they need to learn how to hunt. Ru leaves the cave and starts exploring the outside world, realizing that it's filled with strange creatures, so he thinks it's different from the world he used to live in. He meets a goblin named Kichai, and they decide to work together. They start hunting for food and see a horned rabbit. Kichai chases after it as Ru sets up an ambush and kills it in one hit. Kichai is about to eat it for himself, but Ru beats him up, saying they're supposed to share. Ru takes the rabbit's horn, wondering if it will make a good weapon, but he suddenly sees a notification, becoming confused and wondering what just happened. They eat the rabbit and continue hunting together, using the same tactic to catch their prey. He takes another horn, and the same message appears, but he still doesn't understand what's happening. As they eat the rabbit, the system tells Ru that he has learned the escape ability, so he realizes that he still has his absorption ability from his past life. It's considered to be extremely rare and allows him to learn the abilities of the creatures he consumes. He notes that he no longer has the other abilities from his past life, but thinks absorption is all he needs because he can consume the monsters in the area to get stronger. They return to the cave, where they meet a girl named Mio, who thinks they're amazing because they were able to hunt horned rabbits. Ru thinks they're pathetic, but she reveals that they have killed goblins before. She takes a liking to him, and he invites her to join them for tomorrow's hunt. She agrees, but the next day, it starts raining, so they decide to postpone the hunt. Ru enters their storage area, where he realizes that they have been using human girls to procreate, but he ignores them and takes an ore, using it to forge a weapon. Gabu approaches him, thinking he's going to level up faster than expected, but Ru doesn't understand. Gabu tells him to tap his head. He follows Gabu's instructions and realizes that Gabu is level 86. Gabu reveals that when goblins reach level 100, they evolve into hobgoblins, but few are capable of achieving this because they age faster than humans and die before they reach that level. The next day, Ru's party goes on a hunt, and they are able to defeat monsters with their excellent teamwork. They start eating a snake, and Ru learns its abilities, thinking they're going to be useful. Kichai finds it delicious and wonders if they can eat the head, but Ru explains that it's poisonous, so they'll die if they eat it. They continue hunting for days, eventually reaching a cave, but a swarm of bats attacks them. Kichai uses his shield to defend as Ru uses his Evil Eyes skill, stunning the bats in an instant. He uses this opportunity to slaughter them. Ru's party eats the bats, and he obtains a new set of abilities, but a group of hungry goblins watches them from a distance one evening. We see the group surrounding him as he leaps, but his search ability activates, allowing him to sense the danger, so he beats them up. However, he accidentally stabs one of them, and the person collapses because Ru's weapon is laced with poison. He explains that it was an accident, saying he still can't control his abilities, so they become frightened. Mai realizes they tried to kill Ru, so she strangles one of them. We see an orc walking in the woods when Ru's party attacks him. Mio throws a stone, and it ends up breaking his finger as Kichai brushes his leg, causing him to fall. Ru finishes him off, and they eat his body as Ru obtains new abilities. However, he knows that his companions have had their fill, so he suggests bringing food to the other goblins. They decide to follow his plan, and everyone thanks him for the food as they start eating. But Ru wonders why he's doing this because he used to be a selfish person. That evening, we see everyone sleeping in the cave when the system suddenly disturbs Ru, asking him if he wants to evolve. However, he doesn't bother reading it because he just wants to go back to sleep. So he selects yes, and doesn't think much of it. The next day, he notices that his body has changed, and he checks his reflection, realizing that he almost looks identical to his past self. We see that Kichai has also transformed, so he becomes surprised, and Mai thinks they look amazing. Gaba can't believe they've ranked up because they're only 2 weeks old, but Kichai wants to test his strength, so he tells Rue to fight him. Rue accepts his challenge, and they start fighting in the woods. Kichai manages to land a hit, and he's about to end the fight, but Rue counters, knocking him down. Kichai admits defeat, saying Rue is too strong for him, but Rue tells him he's stronger, saying he was only able to win because of his speed. They suddenly hear a wolf, thinking they're in trouble, so Rue tells Mio to prepare the crossbow they made. We see a wolf pack running in the field, eating the monsters they encounter as Rue's group observes them, thinking it's time to test their new powers. Mio uses the crossbow to fire a poison bolt, and she hits the leader of the pack. The wolves scramble as Rue and Kichai charge in, slaughtering them with ease. The leader gets back up, so Rue prepares to take him on, but the wolf suddenly collapses because of his injury. Rue eats the leader, allowing him to gain new abilities, and he realizes that he has gained a leadership skill, so he decides to try it. He returns to the goblins, telling them to eat the wolves, but he also instructs them to catch the same amount of prey in the future. They know they aren't strong enough to do this, so they beg him to teach them how to hunt. He agrees, saying he'll show them how it's done, and they start praising him, but he tells them to get up, saying they're all comrades. They're moved by his words, so they decide to follow him, thinking he's amazing. A few days later, they realize that the humans have taken their own lives. Rue holds a memorial for them, thinking they did it because they lost hope. Rue trains the goblins, and we learn that he's been eating monsters during the past few days, so he has acquired countless abilities. He sees a group approaching, thinking they're a threat, so he prepares to take them on. However, Gabu stops him, telling him they're from the previous generation. Gabu welcomes them, and we see that they brought humans with them, planning to use them to create the next generation. Rue is against this, so he approaches the leader, named Ken, saying he wants to look after the humans, but Ken becomes upset, looking down on Rue and calling him a newborn. Everyone prepares to fight, but the girls, named Saiyan, arrive, telling them to settle down because nobody wants to get involved in a civil war. Saiyan suggests having Ken and Rue fight to determine who's going to be the leader of the village, but they're not allowed to use weapons. They agree to this, but Ken ends up losing in an instant. Rue explains that his strings don't count as weapons because his body can produce them. He then tells everyone that he's the new leader of the village, but Ken's men aren't happy to hear this. Rue takes the humans to the storage area, telling them they're going to be safe there because he ordered the goblins not to touch them. He promises to return them to a human village, but a girl named Rebellia asks him what he wants from them. Rue tells them to share their knowledge. They reveal that they were part of a traveling business, but Ken's group attacked them, killing the men protecting them and taking them away. The humans start crying, so Rue walks away, giving them space to grieve. 2 days later, Rue gives the humans food, but he realizes that they have already moved on. As he observes them eating, he realizes that they're nothing like goblins because they don't evolve, but they have jobs, which make each of them unique. He already knows what they do for a living, revealing that Rebellia is a rookie warrior, so he thinks about letting her train with the goblins. We see the goblins training, but Ken's men are struggling. Rose starts trash talking them, but they become upset, so he beats them up, reminding them that he's the boss. One evening, Rue is about to go to sleep, but he senses danger. We see Ken with his men as they are about to force themselves on the humans, but Rue stops them, reminding them that they aren't allowed to touch the humans. Ken refuses to cooperate, so Rue knocks him down and tells the humans that everything's going to be okay. M and Kichai arrive, and Rue orders them to drag Ken and his men outside and tell everyone to gather, because he wants them to see what he's about to do. We see everyone watching as Rue tortures Ken, beating him to a bloody pulp. Rue tells them, This is the punishment for breaking the rules. The next day, we see that Ken's men are still tied down, but Ken is already dead because he bled to death. We then see Rue and his friends fighting a Trihorn, but they struggle to break its scales. Rue restrains it and delivers the finishing blow. They start eating it, and Rue obtains new skills, so he decides to test one of them, realizing that he can land 3 blows with a single strike. He's about to go to sleep, but Rebelia joins him. He thinks she still can't get over the incident, so he allows her to sleep beside him. However, when he wakes up, he realizes that Mu also slept beside him, and his arms are in pain because the girls are sleeping on them. The goblins continue their training, and we meet Rue's assistant, Goi, who has just evolved into a hobgoblin. She is responsible for teaching the goblins how to do chores. Mio is the captain of the ranged unit, and Kai is looking after the armored fighters, while S is in charge of the light armored unit. However, C is the only mage in the village, so she doesn't have anyone in her unit. Rue decides to leave the training to them and heads deeper into the woods. Where he sees another Trihorn, he tries his spell on it, killing it in an instant. He becomes confident in his abilities, so he wanders off alone. However, he sees a trail of blood and recalls that Gabu warned him about a dangerous creature in the woods, known as the Red Bear. Despite the warning, he decides to follow the trail anyway, which leads him to a dead Trihorn. He realizes that the creature that killed it must have incredible strength, as it was able to rip through the Trihorn's scales. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking as the Red Bear appears, threatening to kill him. Rue thinks about running away but decides to fight, hoping to obtain its skills. He uses his magic and rushes at the bear, aiming for its head, but the bear blocks the spell with its hand, surprising Rue with its sharp instincts. He lunges at the bear, striking its head with all his might, but the bear's skin is too tough, forcing Rue to retreat. He covers the bear with his strings, but it breaks free and breathes fire, burning everything around. Rue disappears, hiding behind a tree to heal his wounds with a spell, realizing he must put everything on the line to defeat the bear. Charging in as the bear breathes fire, Rue shields himself and closes the distance, stabbing the bear's mouth. The bear retaliates, sending him crashing into a tree. Severely injured, Rue notes that the bear can no longer breathe fire since his sword is stuck in its mouth. Knowing he's on the verge of death if hit again, he risks everything and charges in for a decisive blow. However, the bear attacks, cutting off his arm. Despite this, Rue manages to defeat the bear but is mortally wounded. Desperate, Rue eats the bear's hand, acquiring its incredible strength, but collapses from his injuries. At that moment, he receives a message from the system, informing him that he has reached the max level and offering him the option to evolve into an ogre. He chooses to evolve, regains consciousness, and eats the bear's head, learning more of its skills. He notices his knife has become smaller, realizing it's because he turned into an ogre. When Rue returns to the village, the goblins don't recognize him and see him as a threat. He tells them he's returned, and Neo realizes who he is. She kicks him in frustration, hurting herself in the process, and explains that she was worried about him. When she asks what happened to his arm, Rue tells everyone the story, and they can't believe it. They had always thought the Red Bear was the apex predator of the woods. So, they think he's amazing and start asking him questions, but he's just glad that he was able to make it back alive. Mo and Rebelia start following him around, and the other girls are shocked when they see him, but eventually they realize who he is. One of the girls, named Emery, checks his weapon, noticing how worn out it is, so she mentions that she made a new knife using spirit stone. Rue is happy about this, but Mio and Rebelia get jealous. He talks to the twins and is amazed at how adaptable they are, thinking they will make good wives, but Rebelia hits him for this. He then checks on Spanel, the Eluse, and realizes she made poison. She feels bad but explains it was for self-defense before she realized they could trust him. Rue tells her not to worry about it, but suddenly he feels an intense killing intent. After that, we see that Rue can no longer take part in training because the other goblins are critically injured by just a light punch, and Kai's armor is almost destroyed. Kichai is demoralized after this and goes out to train by himself. Meanwhile, we see S and M getting along, while Goi spends her time mining for spirit stones. Rue hangs out with C and is glad that he ate a slime so he can still kind of use his arm. The next day, Goi suddenly comes rushing to him with an injured spirit, so he quickly heals it. The spirit wakes up and introduces itself as Latana, thanking them for helping her. She explains she was attacked by humans, and Rue thinks it must have been for the gem on her head, which is said to be worth 1 billion gold. Latana begs for their help in getting rid of the humans, explaining how her master was a legendary magician and that she was created to watch over his secret treasure room, which contains all kinds of legendary items. Latana explains how her master hates humans, so he would rather give them all the items instead of letting the humans get them. Goi wonders what they should do, so Rue decides to check it out. Rubelis seems concerned, but Rue says he has no plans to just kill the humans and promises to try and persuade them. He goes with Goi to her mining hall, which seems to lead straight into the treasure room. He tells Goi to hide, and he goes to find the adventurers himself. They are surprised to see an ogre, and he's suddenly attacked by an assassin, but he's able to stop it. He warns them that they are trespassing and tells them to leave, but they refuse and charge at him. Rue finds their attacks too simple, thinking they rely too much on levels and job advancements. He is suddenly hit by a lightning spell, but the adventurers are shocked when they see it has no effect. Rue starts to get pissed off and ends up eating all of them. He's able to learn all of their jobs and finds a magic item bag, as well as a concealment ring. After eating them, he gains the dimensional item box ability. Latana then takes them to her master, Velvet, thanking them for their help, but she fades away, leaving her gem behind. Rue eats it, gaining the Golden Rule ability. Thanks to his new item box ability, they are able to grab all of the treasure, but Rue feels bad about leaving the body. So he decides to cremate it, and it suddenly drops a glove. He tries it on, but it suddenly attaches onto him as he recognizes it as a legendary item. He gains even more abilities. The others are amazed to see it, and it feels as natural as his own hand. After that, he checks out all the items they gathered, and everything is ridiculously strong. He ends up sharing them with the other hobgoblins, but he keeps the 2 other legendary items, which are revealed to be insanely rare. Everyone is able to keep leveling up, and Rot continues to explore the forest. He eats a golden spider as well as a crystal deer, gaining their abilities. He finds an enormous tree and comes across a dryad, but we learn that dryads are said to tempt men and use them as nutrition. The dryad comes up to him, and he struggles to resist her. He ends up giving in but gains the dryad's blessing, and she hopes for him to come back. He continues to fight more monsters and gain their abilities. But when he goes back to the camp, all the girls start ignoring him. He's confused by this and tries to ask what's going on. He ends up with Spannel, who tells him that the girls are jealous because they know he saw someone outside, pointing out the kiss marks on his neck. He remembers the dryad and wonders what he can do in his situation. But Spannel suddenly kisses him, mentioning how she also likes him. Mio gets mad seeing this, but she suddenly clings to him, saying she wants to kiss him as well, and the other girls all say they want the same thing. The next day, Rue reveals that his search ability has improved, and he senses a group approaching. He goes out to meet them, realizing that the elves have arrived to pay him a visit. Their leader looks down on the goblins, calling them savages, and he offers to give them a reward if they defeat the humans threatening the woods. Gaba thinks it's a generous offer, but Rue refuses, mentioning that he doesn't care what happens to the elves, knowing they aren't being sincere. They prepare to fight him, but he exudes his aura, and they're stunned by his overwhelming power. Knowing he's surrounded by archers, he threatens to kill the leader if he doesn't order them to stand down, and the leader fears for his life, so he obeys. Rue explains that he turned down the offer because he didn't like their tone, but he will protect the woods with his life since it's also his home. He displays his power by summoning countless spears which surround the elves, so they decide to retreat. Later, we see Rue hunting a gray slime. He consumes its core, allowing him to obtain a skill called auto-replication. He decides to try it, using his blood to summon a tiny creature, and he realizes that he can use it to see what's happening. So, he decides to put his blood on the girl's clothes, knowing it will help him protect them. A few days later, Rue senses the elves approaching, and their leader orders them to attack. But Rue unleashes a powerful roar, stunning the elves, and uses his web to capture them. He asks the leader why he returned, and the leader admits that he wants to get revenge, but his companions mention that they tried to stop him. Rue explains that he's going to kill their leader, but he will give them a chance to live, saying they need to fight in mock battles against the goblins to determine who will survive. Moments later, we learn that 6 of them have been defeated. So he eats them, allowing him to obtain their skills. He tells the remaining elves that they're going to be kept as prisoners, and Gabu is excited because most of them are women, so he wants to get lucky with them. But Rue tells him not to touch them. The leader starts begging for his life, but Rue executes him, and he ends up getting eaten. Kichai defeats a bear, and he reaches the max level, allowing him to evolve. He returns to the cave, and everyone can't believe that he ranked up, but Rue is happy that he was able to get stronger. We learn that Kichai evolved into a special variant because he has the blessings of the demigods, and he challenges Rue to fight him, thinking he should be able to match Rue's power. Rue accepts the challenge, and he struggles against Kichai, but he still manages to come out on top. He notes that he still has the edge in combat skills, but he acknowledges Kichai's strength, recognizing him as his rival. We see Rue entering the cave when a dark figure appears, and it gives him a gift, saying he should accept it. But he suddenly wakes up, thinking it was just a dream. We learn that Kichai inspired the other goblins to evolve, and Spanel tests their aptitude, revealing that one of them has the potential to be a mage. She introduces Rue to a hobgoblin named G, and she explains that he will make a good cleric. Rue notices that Sei has also evolved, and we learn that she has turned into a half-spell lord. But she wonders why she has strange markings on her body. They head outside, and Sei tests her powers by launching multiple fireballs, causing widespread destruction. She brags about her magic, telling Rue that the spell was basic, but he tells her he has seen enough. We learn that she still hasn't reached her full potential because she can still evolve into a full spell lord. She receives new equipment to celebrate her milestone, and Rue realizes that the villagers are getting stronger. He watches the goblins as they train, and he realizes that his generation is performing better than the previous one, thinking it's because they were raised in a different environment. The next day, the goblins from the previous generation approach Rue, telling him that they've had enough because they don't like the way he's running the village, so they want to leave. He bids them farewell, but they wonder why he isn't stopping them. He explains that they're free to do whatever they want. He shows them a knife made of methyl, telling them to consider it a parting gift, and he uses it to cut himself before allowing them to have it. Rue sees an orc with a dead human, and he notes that the man has an interesting ability, so he kills the orc and eats the man's body. He returns to the cave, where Spanel gives him a drink, and he realizes that it's beer, so he thanks her for creating it. Everyone gathers for a feast as Rue tells them about the goblins that left the village, asking if anyone else wants to leave, but they remain silent, so he realizes that they're happy in the village. They all drink together. After the feast, Rue uses his blood to create earrings, planning to use them to remotely communicate with the others. He makes the others wear them, and they're impressed that it's actually working. Goi manages to defeat a Trihorn in one hit, but Rue notes that it's still alive, so he decides to use the ability he obtained from the human, known as the Monster Tamer, and the Trihorn gets back up, recognizing the goblins as its master. He realizes that the ability is useful, so he uses it to tame other creatures, thinking they could serve the people in his village. We see Rebellia fighting kobolds, and she's able to defeat 3 of them. As Rue notes that she's a competent fighter, she's about to eat, but she suddenly feels weird, realizing she just unlocked a new job. She continues hunting monsters, and she's happy that she's making excellent progress. We learn that her new job is the Noir Soldier, and it allows her to level up faster, but she needs to keep consuming monsters to survive. She tells him that the humans have arrived in the woods, so he realizes that it's time for war. After some time, Rue senses a group of kobolds running to the cave, realizing that they're being chased by a horde of skeletons, so he orders his men to fight the skeletons. But they realize that their weapons aren't working, and he senses a powerful presence behind them, realizing that it's spawning the skeletons. Sei struggles against them, but she hits one of them with her scabbard, and it suddenly crumbles. Rue realizes that they're weak against blunt attacks, and he orders everyone to smash the skeletons, so they start fighting with their fists. He orders them to stand back, saying he only needs 10 seconds to deal with the skeletons, and he blasts through them, allowing him to reach their leader and smash it with his fist. He realizes that he was able to defeat all of them in 7 seconds, and he eats the leader, allowing him to acquire its abilities. The kobolds recognize Rue as their master, saying they owe him their lives, and we learn that they accidentally dug into a treasury, so its guardian awakened and started hunting them down. He reminds them that the goblins have killed kobolds, but they don't care, and they admit that they're weaker than goblins, saying he's free to do whatever he wants with them. So he decides to help them recover, and he realizes that his village is becoming quite an interesting group of people. Rue goes out hunting with Kichai, but they suddenly notice a suspicious group of humans. Rue decides to follow them, and they end up waiting beside a path. He uses his ability to eavesdrop and learns that they are trying to kidnap the daughter of the elf chief, but also that one of the elves leaked the information. They wait until night, and the daughter of the chief passes through. The humans attack, killing the other elves, and they're about to capture the girl, but Rue reveals himself, and he easily deals with the men. He interrogates one of them and learns that the humans plan on attacking them in around 20 days. The girl eventually wakes up, but she's shocked seeing Rue, and she wonders if he's trying to take advantage of her. He eventually calms her down, and she wonders why he didn't save her guards. She calls him mean, but Rue pushes her back, mentioning how they aren't involved in the issues between the humans and elves, and that there's a traitor among the elves. She cries hearing this, so Rue tells her to rest for the night, while Gabu is interested in her. The next day, Rue prepares to escort her back, and he asks about her wings, so she tells him it's because she's a high elf. They reach the elf village, and Rue detects a number of archers targeting him, all with methyl arrows, but the girl tells them to stand down, calling him her savior. They meet with the chief, and Rue mentions he didn't save his daughter out of kindness, so the chief prepares a reward. Rue thinks it will be a good indication of how much he values his daughter, and the chief presents him with an ancient level item. Rue is happy about this, so he offers up information on the humans' movements, and they end up making a deal. The chief gives them even more rare items, but then he suddenly asks about his elite unit, wondering if Rue has seen them. Rue pretends not to know anything. As they leave, the chief even gives them a gift of alcohol and medicines, causing Rue to promise to help them if they are ever in trouble. The next morning, Rue goes to wake Meow, but finds that she has evolved into a dampier variant. Thanks to her blessing from the god of ice, she can now control large amounts of ice, and her eyes also have a bewitching effect that can make enemies attack each other. Goi has also evolved into a half-Earth Lord, and she has the ability to manipulate terrain as well as detect ores and has increased strength. Cell has become a half-blood lord who can manipulate blood and use it as a weapon. With the war approaching, Rue decides to make use of everyone that he can. He gives his communication devices to the kobolds, but the elves refuse since it's taboo for them to decorate their ears, so he spends the night convincing them. After that, he starts getting them all to start training, and he uses a new skill to summon a skeleton, but is surprised when it's black and comes with armor because they're rarer than normal. The elves train against it, and Rue learns he can summon other kinds of undead, but they burn up when exposed to sunlight. We learn that there are now over 100 people in their group, and Rue notes that the kobolds are the weakest, so he takes them for extra training and uses the opportunity to catch more wolf familiars. At night, Rue finds that the halberd he used to fight the red bear has taken a new shape, and it seems Emery was able to improve it using the new materials they got from the elves. Rue is amazed by her work, and it seems she has also ranked up into an elemental smith. Kichai approaches Rue and confesses that he likes Goi. Rue thinks it's obvious, but Kichai doesn't know how to tell her. Rue tells him he needs to just do it because the sooner he gets an answer, the sooner he can move on. So Kichai calls her out at night and confesses his feelings for her. The next day, we see that everything went well, as Kichai feels stronger than ever. We learn that Goi was also asking Mio for advice, which is how Rue knew it would work out. The group goes hunting after their training, and Rue gains even more new abilities. He decides to try the exoskeleton ability, which gives him a suit of armor with built-in healing and impact absorption. But he thinks it looks too extra, so he takes it off only to realize he is naked, as the skill used his clothes as the material for the armor. It seems the skill is able to register multiple forms, so he uses it with a different material to gain insect wings, but he struggles to get used to them. We see everyone continuing to improve. Emery comes up with a new rapid-fire crossbow, while Spannel has created a new item from the black skeletons. They are visited by a group of elves sent by the chief, and they mention that the humans have begun their attack. They promise a great reward, and Rue agrees on the condition that they are able to operate freely, handing the elves a communication device to give to their chief. Rue starts to get excited and decides to gather everyone, announcing that they will become a mercenary group. Sei asks what their name will be, so Rue decides on Parabellum, revealing that it means prepare for war, and everyone starts to get excited. We see Rue leading his group early in the morning, showing them a human camp, but they realize it's surrounded by a magical barrier. Sei knows they can't get past it, so she suggests destroying it, and Rue orders everyone to get into position. He uses his gauntlet to fire a powerful blast, shattering the barrier in one hit. The humans start to panic, and Goi strikes the ground surrounding them with an earth wall. While Sei uses her magic to set the camp on fire, Rue summons countless skeletons and prepares to eliminate the humans, but they start fighting back. We see a knight named Thurs, who is revealed to be their commander. She sees Rue, realizes he's summoning the skeletons, and orders her soldiers to take him down. One of her mages launches a barrage of projectiles, creating an opening for her to charge in. She casts another spell, allowing her to move with ridiculous speed. Rue is impressed, realizing she's an excellent warrior, but as she closes the distance, he casually hits her and blows her away. He recognizes her talent, saying he wants her to join his group, but she refuses, telling him he'll never take her alive. He orders his friends to capture the talented humans, saying they can kill the useless ones. Mio uses her evil eye, which allows her to control the soldiers, and they start killing each other. She manipulates their blood, creating countless swords to slaughter the humans. Thurs men are defeated, but she still fights on, stabbing Rue with everything she has, though she can't pierce his skin. Another mage uses all his power to summon a dragon, telling Thurs to escape. Sei recognizes the spell, thinking Rue will die if hit, but Thurs is ready to sacrifice herself, wanting to take Rue with her. However, he pushes her away, saying he doesn't want her to die. He creates a magical shield that neutralizes the dragon. Sei is impressed, knowing Rue combined the elements to defend himself, and Thurs can't believe how powerful he is. After the battle, Rue celebrates with a chief, who thanks him for dealing with the humans. He checks on the humans he captured, and we learn that he gave them the medicine he received from the elves. However, Thurs finds him suspicious, thinking he's going to use her for breeding. Rue gives them ear cuffs, and we learn that they prevent the humans from lying, allowing him to extract information. He decides to share this with the chief because the chief promised to give Rue alcohol in exchange for the information. Rue uses the communication device to tell the chief that the humans are planning to attack from different directions, having scattered their soldiers to move through the forest. Rue prepares to ambush the humans and sees hundreds of soldiers marching through the woods. He gives the signal, and his men block the path. The soldiers panic as boulders fall from the cliff, killing hundreds of them in an instant. They fall into Rue's traps, and the goblins take them out. However, their leader gathers the survivors and orders them to build a wall, using the stones to shield themselves as the mages use magic to fight back. Rue thinks the leader is impressive, realizing he needs to change his tactics because they're struggling to defeat the humans. He orders Kichai to capture the leader, so Kichai charges with his men as the mages try to stop them. But they're able to get close, and they start slaughtering the humans. Kichai clashes with the leader, who tries his best to fight back, but he ends up getting captured, and his army gets wiped out. We see the prisoners talking about Rue, thinking they're about to rot in jail. But we see that the leader has joined them, and he tells them to calm down. They recognize him, knowing his name is Kobak, and they know he's just a commander, so they refuse to listen to him. Rose starts interrogating Kobak, asking him why the humans are trying to invade the forest. He reveals that the princess of their kingdom is suffering from an incurable disease, and they're trying to look for the secret medicine of the elves, thinking it could heal the princess. But Rue thinks the humans are greedy, knowing they just want to heal her because she's engaged to an emperor. We cut to Goy as she discovers a hot spring, so Rue builds a bath for everyone, and they take the time to relax. The next day, Rue decides to train the prisoners, wanting to improve their combat ability, so he makes them participate in mock battles. We see Sean Mio ordering the prisoners to fight as Rue notes that they're capable commanders. Kobak fights against a skeleton, but he thinks it's too weak and challenges Rue to a fight. Rue uses an ability to buff Kobak, saying he will need it to survive, and Rue completely destroys him, smashing him against the ground. Rue heals him, but Kichai also wants to fight him, so they start pummeling each other, and everyone's impressed by their fighting spirit. After that, Kobak reveals that he grew up surrounded by demihumans, and he thinks Rue is amazing because he was able to gather everyone in the village. Kobak wants to serve him, so he removes his collar, ordering him to train Rebellia because he wants her to get stronger. Rue meets the chief, revealing that 3 of his prisoners are injured, and the chief decides to accept them. Rue asks him about the secret medicine, knowing it can cure all illnesses, and the chief reveals that he gave it to Rue earlier, telling him not to let the humans have it. He decides to try it, and he gains an ability called Medicine Blood, so he decides to use his blood on one of the prisoners, and he instantly recovers, as Rue notes that the skill is overpowered. The next evening, we see a human commander enjoying a cup of tea when Rue's spear suddenly hits him, blowing a hole into his body. The spear activates, impaling the soldiers in the area, and Rue's friends appear, wiping out the remaining humans. The next day, Rue visits the chief, who explains that he wants to end the war, so he decides to send his elite unit to support Rue, thinking the final battle is about to take place. As they return to the village, Tears tells Rue that she wants to serve him, but she asks him to give the secret medicine to the humans because she wants to save the princess. He thinks about it, considering that he can get the kingdom in his debt, but he also considers the religious system, knowing there are 5 great gods in the world who grant people extraordinary powers. We learn that he has the blessings of the god of Dem, an origin, so he thinks there's going to be a religious conflict if he hands over the medicine. However, he considers what could happen, and he tells Tears that he will think about it. Rue's group approaches the enemy's base, but he knows they're outnumbered, so he thinks they shouldn't fight the humans head-on. We learn that he scouted the area ahead of time and heard the humans talking about the Rugal Orden. He asks Kobak and Tears about this, and they tell him that the Rugal Orden is composed of 8 heroic warriors, all blessed by the gods, and they have the ability to strengthen their allies. But Ru looks forward to fighting them because he wants to eat them. He summons his skeletons, but Mio asks him why he's doing this, reminding him that it's almost dawn. However, he explains that he has a plan, telling his friends to secure the perimeter because he's going to attack the base by himself. His skeletons charge in, and the humans struggle to deal with them, but the sun rises and they start to disappear. However, we learn that Ru covered them in slime, which protects them from sunlight. Ru joins the fight, ordering the skeletons to help his friends, and he gathers the water and blood in the area, unleashing a powerful wave that takes out all the soldiers in an instant. But a boy named Philip approaches Ru. He knows that Philip is one of the Rugal Orden and isn't as strong as the others, but he reveals that he doesn't like the name because it makes him sound like an insect. He shows Ru his eyes, and Ru realizes that he received the blessing from the god of demonic insects, thinking his aura is insane. Philip reveals that he used his abilities to create bugs and releases them as the soldiers start moving. Ru notes that they aren't zombies because the sun isn't affecting them, so he believes they're being controlled by parasites. Philip explains that the members of the Rugal Orden are different from heroes because they aren't as powerful, but they have the ability to strengthen their allies. He uses his ability, transforming the soldiers into insects, and they start attacking Ru. Ru slices through them, so Philip recognizes his skills and decides to control the insects, allowing them to launch coordinated attacks. Ru struggles against them, and Philip notes that he's getting hit, but the insects can't kill him because of his regeneration. Philip summons his favorite pet, a massive centipede, which bites Ru. Philip reveals that his pet is classified as a natural disaster and explains that its venom can paralyze its targets. Ru loses consciousness, and the centipede puts him down as Philip orders it to finish its mission. The centipede leaves, but Philip realizes that Ru is missing and launches a surprise attack, which Philip barely manages to avoid. Philip wonders how Ru was able to survive, but Ru refuses to reveal his secret. Philip thinks Ru used a fake corpse. Philip is about to reveal his first secret weapon and starts bragging about how powerful he is, but Ru suddenly attacks him, shattering his vial. Philip thinks Ru is being rude, and tentacles suddenly appear from his body as he prepares to use his second secret weapon. He consumes the corpses, allowing him to create a suit of armor, and he starts attacking. But Ru counters and blows him away. He starts flying as he mentions that Ru is full of surprises, wondering how he can be so powerful without an epic awakening. Ru wonders what he means, but he refuses to say anything. Ru reveals that he also has an insect outfit, and he summons his exoskeleton, saying they're now evenly matched. He starts flying as Philip tries to stop him, but he manages to close the distance and lands a devastating blow that sends Philip crashing to the ground. We see that his friends have defeated the enemy soldiers, but Mio gets a bad feeling and she flies off. Philip says he's had enough and he abandons his armor as he starts running away. Ru chases after him, but the armor gets in the way, so he strikes it down but realizes that Philip has gotten away. Mai is glad to see that he's okay, and he reveals that he sent a replicant with stealth abilities to search for the human leader. He sees the prince of the kingdom, telling him he wants to put an end to the war. He gives the secret medicine to the prince, telling him to use it to save the princess. The soldiers ask him what they should do next, and he tells them to send a messenger because they've already acquired the secret medicine. We return to Ru, and we learn that he didn't want to kill the prince because the kingdom will retaliate if that happens. Goi destroys a cliff, creating a wall around the forest, and they start looking after their wounded soldiers. We see two humans trying to return to their base, but they see Ru, so they panic. He spares them, telling them the war is over. Ru has a funeral for his fallen comrades as he notes that they lost 30 because of the war. We learn that the corpses need to be burned because they could end up turning into zombies or ghosts, and his friends start crying as Ru thinks about doing whatever it takes for them to survive. We see that a number of the goblins evolved after the battle. She has become a half-saint lord thanks to healing all the injured, and he even gained a shield ability that's strong enough to withstand some of Rue's punches. Gaofu has become a ghoul because she always ate the zombies that Rue created, but Rue is a little scared of her. He tries not to think about her, but he runs into Mei, who has become a demi with eyes all over her body, which give her the remote viewing ability, so she will be good for gathering intel. Rot checks on the kobolds, and he sees that their leader has also evolved. He reveals he has gained a true name, calling himself Ada. We learn that true names are special names that individuals are granted at a certain level, but if an enemy learns it, they can cast certain spells, like curses, on you, so it's important to keep it a secret. But Akita reveals it to Rue as a sign of his loyalty. After that, Rue wonders what to do with the prisoners. He tells them they're free to leave, or they can stay as provisional members, but there are a few who are unhappy being treated like rookies since they're much stronger than the other goblins. Rue tells them to leave if they have a problem, but the leader's eye suggests fighting for control of the group. Rue decides to humor them, so he tells them to attack him together. They activate their orb weapons as we learn that they give their users a boost in power, but Rue still easily blows them away. She heals their wounds, but Rue suddenly gets hit by a sneak attack, and he gets sent flying. The gorilla man calls himself the boss, but Rue suddenly punches him back and completely destroys him. Rue looks for the half-damper, but sees him flirting with Mio, so he gives him an extra special beating. Mio ends up stopping him, and he gives the man some of his blood to heal him. There are others who thank Rue for saving them from slavery, and they willingly join as provisional members. The half-damper approaches them again, but he's fallen in love with Rue after tasting his blood. However, Rue isn't into it, so he gives him another beating, but they end up with 50 new provisional members. Rue introduces Emery to some dwarves, but they seem to be a bit rude, so Emery doesn't like them. But Rue asks her to get along since dwarves are said to be the best craftsmen, and they give him a new warhammer. Rue goes on a walk in the woods, and he thinks about how much things have changed. But the D suddenly appears, asking if he wants to have some fun. He tries to turn her down, but she has her way with him. When he gets back to the base, the girls get mad seeing all the kiss marks on his face. After that, Rue starts to grow crops as we learn that he went to see the dryad to get magical seeds from her, which grow faster and are more nutritious. Some of the provisional members decide to go home, and we see that the noble prisoners have also been released, but they've all been brainwashed by Mew, so they've basically become spies. Rue learns that the army has started to completely withdraw. The elf chief is glad that it's over, and he invites Rue to join their banquet. Rue does some crafting with his skeleton bones, and he ends up creating a skeleton centipede. He shows it to the girls, and they think it's creepy, but he explains they can use it as a vehicle, and he plans to take them back to their home. They wonder if they're being kicked out, but he mentions he wants to fulfill his promise to take them home and give them a chance to choose if they want to stay. There's a feast to officially welcome the new members, and Zion thinks the centipede will scare people in the town. The damper Danny notes that the Empire and the Kingdom have disdain for demi-humans, so he will need a guarantor from a noble family to get in, but Z offers to help him out. The next day, before they head off, Rue splits everyone into groups, telling them to gather more information about the outside world, but reminds them that no one is allowed to die. They all head off, and Ruth thinks things will be quiet without everyone around, but he looks forward to finding even stronger prey out in the world. As they head towards the city of Triant, they arrive at the city, but everyone panics, thinking they're about to get slaughtered. So Rue's companions explain their situation, and they're able to find a place to stay. He tells the girls they can leave his party and stay in the city because he knows they were kidnapped, and he wants them to enjoy their lives. However, he thinks they're a valuable asset to his party, so he prefers having them around. Rubalus shows him the Adventurers Guild, where he immediately gets attacked because everyone thinks he's a threat, so he knocks them out. Relia tells the attendant about Parabellum, and an old man tells them to register as adventurers, so they follow his instructions. M invites Rue to go shopping, but he explains that he needs to gather intel, and he disguises himself as a human. He walks around the city as he hears everyone talking about him, thinking he's dangerous, so he realizes that it will be difficult for him to advertise his company. He suddenly gets ambushed by a group of thugs, but he easily deals with them and eats their bodies. He realizes that they're wearing rings with the same design, so he thinks they're working for a criminal organization. He hears a boy arguing with a group of men because he just paid their ransom, but they won't release their hostage, so he threatens to kill them, but they take him down and he's about to be stabbed. But Rue knocks them out and he infects them with one of his replicants. The boy thinks he should have killed them, but he explains that he has a plan, and he gives him a business card telling him to contact Parabellum if he needs help as Rue reveals his true form. That evening, the boy visits Rue, saying he's trying to rescue a princess who has been kidnapped, and Rue reveals that he knows where to find her. We see the thugs in their hideout, but Rue eliminates them, and he leads the boy to the princess as he examines a document, realizing that the whole thing was planned out. He advises the boy not to tell anyone what happened, but he refuses, so Dan uses his hypnosis, forcing him to obey. The following day, Rue learns about the next generation of goblins, and he's glad to hear this, but he keeps thinking about the human girls, hoping they won't leave him. So he visits them, and they all tell him they want to stay with him, so he thanks them for being loyal to him. Later that day, the princess visits Rue, knowing he was the one who saved her, and she introduces herself as Ellis Stern. She knows about Parabellum, and she decides to hire them, telling them to escort her to the royal capital. But he refuses, reminding her that she has guards, but she thinks they're useless, and the boy reveals that she'll be paying them a gold plate for the job. The girls tell Rue that it's worth 1 million gold coins, so he realizes that the offer is too good to pass up. Rue ends up accepting the job, but he wonders why Alice has no guards, so she explains that she left them, and he can't believe this, thinking they're searching for her and they might mistake him for a kidnapper. But he knows that he can't break the contract. So they ride the skeleton centipede as the princess points him to a herd of buffalo. So they kill one of them and eat it. But Rue comes up with an idea and decides to tame a buffalo so that the skeleton centipede will look less conspicuous. They continue their journey hunting monsters along the way, but Ellis keeps putting herself in danger, so Rue realizes she's trouble. They see a nest, and Rue knows there are turtle snakes, so he pulls them out, and Ellis apologizes for her behavior as she decides to help them prepare the food. They enjoy the meal together, and as they journey on, Rue notes that Ellis is aware that monsters are dangerous, but she's doing ridiculous things because of her curiosity. We learn that the boy is a knight, and he's about to train with Rue, but Ellis decides to join them because she wants to learn how to fight. Rue notes that the boy lacks combat experience, so he gets beat up because Rue wants him to realize that he needs to get stronger. But Rue realizes that Ellis has potential, and he knows that she's determined to improve. They discuss the route they should take, and we learn that the shortest route is extremely dangerous because they need to get past the strongest creatures in the mountains, which are known as the Falaise Eagles. The boy adds that their leader, the Jade Eagle, is a force to be reckoned with because it has the blessing of a god, so everyone thinks they should avoid it. But Rue doesn't care, and he decides to hunt it. They encounter the Falaise Eagles, but Rue captures all of them, and the group eats them for breakfast. But the Jade Eagle suddenly appears, so Rue starts fighting it, but after an hour, everyone becomes worried, thinking he's going to lose. So they decide to look outside, and they realize he lost his arm, so they think he's in trouble. But he eats his arm, allowing him to regenerate as he reveals that he wasn't fighting seriously. He unleashes his full power and restrains the eagle as he lands the finishing blow, sending it crashing to the ground. He notices something on the eagle's body, realizing that it has a soul stone next to its heart, and the girls know that it's extremely rare, thinking they can sell it to make a fortune. Rue eats the jade eagle, allowing him to obtain its abilities, but Ellis asks him why he eats everything he kills. So he explains that he's doing it to take on their regrets and grudges, and he knows his explanation is weird because nobody in his past life understood him. But Ellis doesn't say anything, and she keeps thinking about what he said. They arrive at the village of Mason, but the people panic and they prepare to fight Rue. But Ellis shows them her crest as she tells them to be silent, and they recognize her as the princess, so they allow him to enter the village. The mayor gives them a place to stay and shows them the tourist spots because he wants the princess to have a good time. That evening, everyone drinks together, and a man touches Mio, so she beats him up. Rue challenges everyone to a drinking competition, saying the winner will earn 4 silver plates, and the villagers accept his challenge, but they all end up getting drunk, and we learn that they never stood a chance because ogres can't get drunk, and Rue just did this so they would forget about Mio. The next day, they continue their journey, but Rue realizes that the twins are both pregnant with his children. So he calls Gabu, saying he doesn't know what to do, but Gabu tells him they won't make it back to their village in time because ogre children are born immediately, and he thinks the sisters won't survive because humans are too small to bear ogre children. So Rue decides to find a place for them to give birth, telling them to hang on, and they assure him they're going to be fine. But Spannel realizes they're getting weaker, thinking they need to eat something nutritious to survive. So Rue removes his arm and tells them to eat it, thinking it should give them enough energy. But they refuse, saying they don't want to eat him. So he takes a bite and kisses them, forcing it into their bodies as he tells them that he doesn't want them to die. They reach a cave where they're attacked by bears, but Z and the others deal with them as he prepares a bed for the sisters. He uses his healing ability to keep them alive as their bellies continue to expand, and she tells him that the babies are ready to be delivered. So he performs surgery on the sisters. Moments later, we see that everything went well and the sisters are still alive. Rue notes that he felt nervous, but he's glad that he was able to save them, and he realizes he's a father now. Gaba calls Rue, telling him that the children are probably of mixed blood, and Rue mentions that they each have 1 horn. But GBU suggests removing them because mixed bloods are shunned by society, thinking they're abominations. But Rue thinks this shouldn't be a problem as he promises to show them love. She tells him that Parabellum will take care of the babies. We see that they're both born as lords, and they each have an orb attached to them. So he names the girl Oro and the boy Argent, revealing that he named them after the color of their orbs. The next day, Rue leaves the cave alone as he searches for a powerful monster. He sees a giant deer, calling it the white stag, and he thinks it's a boss, thinking he may not be able to defeat it even if he goes all out. He decides to fight it anyway, but it removes its antlers and quickly runs away. He thinks about eating the antlers, but then thinks about his babies and decides to save it for them. He continues walking around and sees a group of adventurers as they fight against a group of monsters. Rue sees the leader calling him Baylor, and the adventurers are able to defeat his minions. But Baylor attacks them with an energy blast, and Rue realizes they're struggling, but he acknowledges their skills. The leader continues to fight, and Baylor prepares to unleash his ultimate skill, but he suddenly gets hit by magical arrows, which instantly tear him into pieces. Rue approaches Baylor's remains as he thinks about storing it in his item box, but the adventurers prepare to fight him, thinking he's a threat. But their leader emits a magnificent aura, and Rue takes interest in him. So he decides to spare him, telling him he can have his potions in exchange for Baylor's remains. The man agrees to this, so Rue puts Baylor in his item box and starts walking away as the adventurers start talking about him, thinking he's an interesting creature. But the leader reveals that he has an ability called Voice of Death, and it told him that Rue could have wiped out his party. Rue eats Baylor and returns to the cave where his family welcomes him back. He gives the white stag's horn to his children, allowing them to improve their stats, and he tries eating it with Rebellia, and they both obtain strange abilities. Rebellia reveals that she got a new job called Stall Eater, But Rue realizes that the white stag is incredibly powerful. Knowing he isn't strong enough to tame it, Rue goes to sleep, and the system informs him that his level is maxed out, asking him if he wants to evolve into an apostle lord. So he agrees to evolve and obtains special abilities. But there's suddenly an error message telling him he still needs to meet certain conditions to unlock a new set of skills. The next day, they continue their journey, but they realize that Emery and Spanel are pregnant. Rue already knows what to do, so he tells them they're going to set up camp, and we see that they're able to deliver their babies. Emer's son is a high orc, while Spanel's daughter is human, and everyone realizes she's smaller. They rest in a place called Purgatory, as Ellis wears a disguise, thinking everyone will recognize her because they're already close to the capital. The girls rest at the end as Rue leads the others to the Adventurers Guild. Rebellia realizes there's a training room, and a group of adventurers challenges Rue to a fight, but he tells them to fight the others instead. So they start pounding each other, and the adventurers end up losing. But Rue invites them to join Parabellum. He later goes shopping with the girls, and he buys a camera, using it to take pictures of his babies. That evening, he decides to contact the other members of Parabellum, and he calls S, who reveals that Sei was able to buy spell books because they've been capturing criminals to make money. He contacts May, who explains that she's been gathering information, so Rue knows she's been working hard, and he tells her to take a break. He thinks about calling Kichai, but he suddenly gets a vision where he gets sliced in half, so he freaks out, wondering what he just saw. So Rue decides to head to the city of Gios because he wants to see how Kichai is doing. He tells Ellis that this is going to take 2 days, so they won't be reaching the capital anytime soon. But she allows it, saying it shouldn't be a problem. As they travel, everyone observes the babies, and they realize that Spanel's child isn't developing as fast as the others. But they think it's because humans take longer to mature. Rue sees May with a necklace, recognizing it as the one he gave her. But she thinks she isn't good enough for him because she appears to be falling behind, thinking she's nowhere near his level. She reveals that she wants to have a baby with him, and he tells her he'll never leave her, saying it doesn't matter if she can't bear his children. They reach Gios, where they see a dungeon, but they encounter a group of adventurers running away, and they mention that there's an overpowered menuer inside. Rue talks to the mayor, telling him the menuer is his friend, but the mayor explains that the adventurers are trying to take him out. So they return to the entrance of the dungeon, and Kichai appears with Goi. Rue notes how they have gotten bigger. Goi reveals that they didn't kill the adventurers, and Rue asks Kichai about his vision. So he explains that he reached the deepest part of the dungeon, where he encountered a boss monster that copied Rue. He was no match for it, and the system tells him he died, but his death was cancelled thanks to one of Rue's abilities. He receives the blessing of the lightning god, allowing him to reach a new level of power. He slices the monster in half, and Rue realizes this is the vision he saw, as Kichai reveals that he's now a menuer and Goi is an Earth Lord. He wants to test his skills, so he challenges Rue to a fight. So they head to the arena, as Ellis wonders why they're fighting. So May explains that they're rivals. Kichai explains that he wants to win because he wants to be considered Rue's equal, knowing he has never won against him. They start fighting as their weapons clash, but Rue falls back and realizes that Kichai is stronger than him. He charges in, and Rue parries his attack, but there's suddenly an explosion, so Rue jumps away as he notes that he can't resist Kichai's flames. He realizes that Kichai got stronger because he wants to defeat him, so he gets fired up as they clash once again. He uses his magic to attack from behind, but Kichai manages to defend himself, and he summons a ball as Rue struggles to avoid it. So he uses his new ability, which allows him to boost his stats. He throws Kichai away and starts attacking with ridiculous speed as Kichai struggles to defend himself, but he unleashes a burst of flames. So Rue becomes confused, and Kichai lunges at him. So he tries to use his magic to stop him, but Kichai blocks it with his shield and attacks Rue with everything he has, causing a powerful shockwave that threatens everyone in the arena. But he suddenly realizes that he forgot to hold back, realizing he could have hurt his friends. Rue manages to recover, telling him he needs to be careful, and he suddenly dashes in with a new skill, unleashing his blazing fists. Kichai tries to block it, but his shield ends up breaking, and Rue lands the finishing blow as he recalls how they used to hunt together when they were still goblins, realizing that they have both come a long way. After the fight, Kichai and Goi head home, and the group makes it to the royal capital. Iris takes them to her palace, and she tells them to stay there as she prepares their reward. They have a feast for dinner, but they have trouble sleeping since they aren't used to having such nice rooms. The next day, Iris gives Rue his payment and a card that gives him free access to the capital. Rue wonders if she should really be giving it to him, but she plans on requesting his services again, so she wants him to be able to return freely. He leaves some of his replicants in the city, and the group begins to head back. The trip goes smoothly, but we see Mayo is depressed, thinking about how strong Kichai has gotten, so she worries about falling behind, but Rue reminds her he will never abandon her, and he promises to help her train. They take a break from their trip, and Rue summons a bunch of giants to help her train. She decides to give it everything she has, and she ends up defeating over 50 of them. But she notes that it wasn't enough. Rue tells her she did well, but she suddenly passes out. He takes her back to the others, and they all have dinner together. At night, we see that Mio has fulfilled the requirements to evolve, and we see she has become a vampire lord. But Rue is just glad she's happy again. They make it back to the forest, but when they get back to the cave, they see that it's completely different. The others welcome them back, and they mention they made a few renovations. Goi shows them the new farm, and it seems that even the Drad has moved in, helping out with planting the seeds. There's also a ranch for all the animals, but Ji suddenly comes running, saying that Gabu is dying. So Rue visits him, and it seems he doesn't have much time left. Rue introduces his children to him, and Gabu is happy to finally see them. Rue mentions how he's now an apostle lord, and Gabu can't believe he was the baby he once held. He's glad he was a part of something so special, but he ruins the moment as he passes away. They have a funeral for him, and we learn he was around 20 years old. Rue doesn't know how long they live for, but thinks it doesn't matter as long as he's spending it with everyone he cares about. In honor of Gabu, Rue decides to have a tournament to see how everyone in Parabellum has improved. We see everyone fighting and trying out their new skills, and Kichai gets his rematch with Rue. He thanks Rue for helping him get stronger, but he swears to surpass him. They charge at each other, causing a massive clash, and they fight until the end of the day. But Rue manages to come out on top. Everyone compares their results, and the twins serve dinner as Rue thinks about how strong everyone has become. At night, he gets a call from Iris requesting his services once again. He tries to turn her down, but she makes him an offer he can't refuse,